The first thing she heard when she walked through the door was laughter. Not the warm kind. The kind that makes you very aware of where you're standing. Marisol Vega had flown in from Austin that morning, taken a cab from the airport, and hadn't eaten since 5 a.m. She was wearing jeans, dark wash, clean, and a white blouse she'd ironed the night before because she wanted to look right for this. Not overdressed, just right. Her carry-on bag had a broken wheel that dragged slightly on the marble floor, and she noticed a woman near the front desk glance down at it with the particular expression of someone who has decided, in less than 2 seconds, everything they need to know about you. Marisol didn't say anything. She walked up to the front desk and waited. The Belmore Grand wasn't the biggest hotel in Charleston, but it was the oldest, and in certain circles, that mattered more than size. 12 stories of white limestone, a lobby with 14-foot ceilings, and a chandelier that had been photographed more than most people's wedding days. The kind of place where every surface was polished to say, "You should feel lucky to be here." The man behind the desk finished typing something. He did not look up. "One moment," he said. She waited. A couple behind her, white, early 60s. The woman in a linen blazer walked up to the desk 2 seconds later, and the man looked up immediately. "Welcome back, Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell," he said, smiling fully. "Your suite is ready." Marisol watched this. She didn't move. She didn't say anything yet. She'd learned a long time ago that the first thing you say sets the temperature of the entire room, and she wasn't ready to set it yet. The couple was checked in and gone with their luggage cart within 4 minutes. The man, his name tag said Douglas, assistant manager, finally looked at her. "How can I help you?" "I have a reservation," Marisol said. "Vega." Marisol Vega. He typed. He looked at the screen. He typed again, slower, like he was giving the keyboard a second chance to confirm what he thought he already knew. "I'm not finding anything under that name." "It might be under Vega Okafor," she said. Her mother sighed. She'd hyphenated recently and hadn't decided yet which name to put first when booking things. More typing. "I'm going to need to see some ID," he said. She handed him her license. He looked at it for a beat longer than necessary, then at her, then back at the screen. "This is a signature suite reservation," he said. There was something in his voice. Not hostility, not yet. More like a question that didn't know how to ask itself politely. "Yes," Marisol said. "That's our premium tier." I know what it is," she said. Still calm. Still even. He picked up the phone, called someone. Spoke quietly, turned slightly away from her. She caught the words, and front desk situation, and that phrase told her exactly where this was going. She had been in this situation before. Not here, not in this specific marble lobby, with this specific chandelier, but in rooms that looked like this, and felt like this, and smelled like fresh flowers covering something else entirely. She knew the rhythm of it. The pause before service, the extra verification that no one else was asked for, the look. She'd learned to breathe through it. Not because it didn't hurt, but because she'd found that her composure made people like Douglas visibly uncomfortable, and that discomfort was the only honest thing they'd give her for free. A man appeared from a back office, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit jacket over an open-collar shirt in the way that said, "I'm management, but I want you to know I'm relaxed about it." His name tag said Fletcher Doyle, Director of Guest Experience. Marisol almost laughed at the title. Director of Guest Experience. "Mrs. Vega," he said. "Yes. I'm Fletcher Doyle. I oversee guest relations here at the Belmore." He didn't extend his hand. He stopped about 4 feet away from her, which was 1 foot further than polite conversation distance. "I understand there's some confusion about your reservation." "There isn't any confusion on my end," she said. Fletcher smiled. It was the kind of smile that had been practiced until it no longer reached anything. "Of course. It's just that the signature suite is. It's one of our flagship accommodations. We want to make sure everything is in order." "Do you do this with all your guests?" "We have certain verification procedures, the couple that just checked in," Marisol said. "Did you verify them?" Fletcher looked at Douglas. Douglas looked at his keyboard. "We know the Hartwells," Fletcher said. "They're returning guests." "I see." She set her bag down slowly. "And new guests, what do you need from them?" "It's standard," he said, and there was something shifting in his voice now, something that had decided to stop pretending and just become itself. "We need to ensure our guests that the reservation is legitimate." "You're asking if I can afford it," Marisol said. "That's not what I said." "No," she agreed. "It's not what you said." A small silence opened between them. Somewhere behind her, someone's heels clicked across the marble. The chandelier did what chandeliers do. It hung there, beautiful and indifferent. "Mrs. Vega," Fletcher said, leaning slightly forward, lowering his voice in the way men do when they want to seem like they're doing you a favor. "Perhaps I can help you find something more appropriate for your needs. We have lovely standard rooms on the 4th floor. Very comfortable. Many of our guests." "I didn't ask for a standard room," Marisol said. "Of course not, but I booked the signature suite. I have a confirmation number. I'd like to check in." Fletcher straightened. The smile had changed again. It was sharper now, with less effort at warmth. "I'm going to be frank with you," he said, "and every time someone says I'm going to be frank with you, something unkind follows. The signature suite is reserved for a particular tier of guest. Someone who," he paused, chose words, "fits the profile of what we offer at this level." Marisol looked at him for a long moment. "Fits the profile," she repeated. "This is a prestigious property," he continued, and his voice had found a new confidence now, the kind that comes from never having been wrong in a room before. "Our guests at that level have certain expectations for the environment. For the other guests they'll be sharing common spaces with." He glanced at her carry-on, the one with the dragging wheel. Then, back at her face. That was the moment, not the first slight, not the double verification, not even the offer of a 4th-floor room. That glance. That half-second of a look that catalogued her, assessed her, and found her insufficient. That was the moment Marisol Vega felt something settle in her chest like a stone finding the bottom of a river. "I want you to listen to me carefully," she said. Her voice was quiet, quieter than it had been. Quiet the way a room goes quiet before a storm shows up. "My name is Marisol Vega Okafor. I am 31 years old. I have a law degree from Georgetown, and I have spent the last 6 years of my career in hotel acquisition and asset management. I have reviewed the financials of 43 hotel properties in the last 4 years alone." She paused, "Including this one." Fletcher's smile thinned. "Twice," she added. "Mrs. Vega." The second time, she said, "I wasn't just reviewing, I was conducting due diligence, a beat, on behalf of Meridian Hospitality Group," she said, "which, as of 11 weeks ago, completed its acquisition of the Belmore Grand and 3 of its sister properties." She reached into her bag, the one with the dragging wheel, and pulled out a business card, set it on the desk between them. "I'm the Vice President of Portfolio Strategy. I flew in this morning to begin the integration assessment for this property." The lobby did not actually go silent. The chandelier still hung, the marble still gleamed. Somewhere a phone rang and was answered. But around the front desk, in the small geography between Marisol and Fletcher Doyle, something changed completely and irrevocably. Fletcher looked at the card. He looked at it the way people look at things they very much wish weren't there. Douglas had stopped typing. Fletcher started. "The signature suite," Marisol said. "If you'd like to look up the reservation again." What happened next took about 40 minutes, though it felt both longer and shorter than that, the way significant things often do. Fletcher went to make a phone call. He was gone for 11 minutes. When he came back, he was a different color than when he'd left. Not pale exactly. More like a man who has abruptly understood what altitude sickness feels like. Behind him was a woman Marisol hadn't seen before. Mid-50s, natural hair pinned back, reading glasses pushed up on her head. Wearing the kind of blazer that meant she'd been in a meeting when she got the call. Her name was Sandra Powell, the hotel's general manager, and she walked across the lobby with the energy of someone who had not yet decided exactly how bad today was going to be, but was prepared for the answer to be very. "Messieurs Vega Okafor," she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm and her eye contact was direct. "I'm Sandra Powell. I'm the GM here. I am so sorry you've been kept waiting." "Thank you," Marisol said. Sandra's eyes moved to Fletcher for a fraction of a second. It was the shortest look Marisol had ever seen carry that much information. "Douglas is going to get you checked in right now," Sandra said. "Can I get you anything while we get that sorted? Coffee, water, something to eat?" "I understand you've been traveling since early this morning." "Water would be great," Marisol said. Water appeared in approximately 90 seconds, sparkling, with a slice of cucumber, in a glass that was colder than the air around it. Marisol drank it slowly and watched Douglas's hands tremble slightly as he processed her check-in. The signature suite was on the 10th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a bathtub you could drown gracefully in, a view of Charleston's harbor that turned gold in the late afternoon. Marisol set her bag down by the door, the broken wheel scraping one last time across the hardwood, and stood at the window for a moment. She wasn't thinking about Fletcher. She'd dealt with Fletchers her whole life. They came in different shapes and different industries, but they all had the same architecture: the assumption, the smile, the frank talk, the moment of recalibration. She knew the species well. She was thinking about something her mother had told her once, when Marisol was maybe 15, and had come home from a store where a security guard had followed her through every aisle for 20 minutes. Her mother, a diaze, practical and unsparing and brilliant in the way that women who have survived everything are, had sat across from her at the kitchen table and said, "The problem is not that they underestimate you. People underestimate each other all day long. The problem is when they decide you don't even deserve a fair look. And the only answer to that, the only real answer, is to be so undeniably present that they cannot look away." Marisol had spent 16 years trying to figure out exactly what that meant. She thought, standing at that window with Charleston laid out golden beneath her, that maybe she was starting to understand. She had dinner in the hotel restaurant that night. She hadn't planned to. She'd intended to find somewhere nearby, a local spot, something with good shrimp and no pretense. But Sandra Powell had called her room personally to invite her, and there was something in the invitation that felt less like hospitality and more like accountability. Like Sandra needed to see Marisol seated well in her own dining room. So Marisol went. The restaurant was called the Palmetto Room, and it was beautiful in the way that places are beautiful when they've been beautiful long enough to stop trying. Dark wood, white tablecloths. Low light, a menu that changed with the season and didn't feel the need to explain itself. Marisol was seated at a window table without being asked, and her water glass was never less than 3/4 full, and the server, who introduced himself as Marcus, gave no indication whatsoever that anything about her presence was remarkable in any way, which was, of course, all she'd wanted from the beginning. She ordered the sea bass and a glass of something the sommelier suggested with gentle confidence, and she ate slowly and looked out at the harbor and thought about the integration report she'd need to file by Friday. Halfway through her meal, she became aware that Fletcher Doyle was eating across the room. He was with a woman, his wife, she assumed, though maybe not, and 2 other people who might have been friends. They were laughing at something. He had his back partially to Marisol, but not entirely, and at some point he turned and caught her eye by accident. He looked away almost immediately. Then looked back, like he was making himself do it. She held his gaze for a moment. Not long, not dramatically. Just long enough for him to understand that she was not going to want to look away first. Then she went back to her sea bass, which was excellent. The next morning, Marisol had an 8 a.m. meeting with Sandra and the department heads. It was the first formal step of the integration process, not an audit, not a performance review, just an introduction. "We're here. We're learning the property. We want to hear from you." She arrived early. She always did. The conference room was on the second floor, overlooking the lobby, and through the glass walls she could see the morning staff, beginning their shifts, guests filtering through to the breakfast room, the whole quiet machinery of a hotel coming online for another day. Fletcher Doyle was not in the meeting. She'd noticed his name on the list, and then, the morning of, noticed it was gone. She didn't ask why. Sandra had handled it cleanly, the way good managers handle things they're ashamed of, but not surprised by. The department heads, food and beverage, housekeeping, events, concierge, sales, were a range of ages and dispositions. Some of them were nervous, some were curious. One man, the head of concierge, kept stealing glances at her like he was trying to figure something out. At the end of the meeting, after everyone had introduced themselves, and the agenda had been walked through, Marisol looked around the table. "I want to say one thing," she said, "and then we can all go get coffee, because I know it's early." A few smiles. "I've been in this industry long enough to know that when a new ownership group comes in, the thing people are most afraid of is change for change's sake. We're not here to do that." She paused. "We're here because this is a great property. The bones are excellent. The staff is experienced. The reputation matters." She looked at each of them in turn. "Not for long, just enough. What we're going to do is figure out, together, how to make sure that reputation extends to every single guest who walks through that lobby. Not just the ones people already know. Not just the ones who fit someone's idea of what a Belmore Grand guest looks like." Another pause. Everyone. The room was quiet, not uncomfortable quiet, the other kind. The head of housekeeping, a woman around 60 with reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck, looked at Marisol and nodded once, slowly, like she'd been waiting for someone to say that for a while. Later that afternoon, Sandra Powell stopped by Marisol's temporary office, a room near the events corridor that smelled faintly of fresh paint and old carpet, to drop off some paperwork. She lingered at the door. "I owe you an apology," Sandra said. "You don't," Marisol said. "You weren't the one at the front desk, ah." "I run this hotel," Sandra said. "What happens here is on me." She set the folders on the edge of the desk. "Fletcher Doyle has been on a performance improvement plan for 4 months. Yesterday was his last day." Marisol looked up. "He would have been let go eventually," Sandra said. "What happened yesterday just clarified the timeline." Marisol was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. How many guests do you think he's done that to? Who didn't have a business card to pull out?" Sandra didn't answer right away. She pressed her lips together, looked at the window. "That's actually the question I've been sitting with since yesterday afternoon," she said finally. "Good," Marisol said. "Let's figure it out together." Sandra nodded, picked up the empty coffee cup from her corner of the desk, set it back down, like her hands needed something to do. "You know," she said, "you weren't what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Honestly, I expected someone angrier." Sandra half smiled. "I think I might have been angrier." Marisol thought about that, about all the energy that anger takes and all the places she'd learned to put it instead. "I was angry," she said. "I just do something with it." The property assessment took 5 days. Marisol walked every floor. She sat in the lobby at different hours and watched how the staff interacted with guests. Not secretly. She wasn't there to spy. But quietly, just observing the texture of how the hotel actually functioned versus how it was documented. She ate in the restaurant twice more. She had coffee at the bar in the late afternoons and made small talk with the bartender, a young man named Theo, who'd worked there for 3 years and had noticed a great many things that would never make it into any official report. On the 4th day, she was in the lobby reviewing some vendor documents when a woman walked in with 2 small children and a stroller that immediately lost a wheel on the marble. Nobody moved. Marisol was on her feet and at the door before she'd consciously decided to be. She held the stroller while the woman, maybe 25, exhausted in the specific way that parents of toddlers are exhausted, looking at the marble floor with an expression that said, "I should have stayed home," got her bearings. You're okay, Marisol said. The wheel just pops back in. She showed her how. It clicked into place. Thank you, the woman said. She looked around the lobby with the hesitance of someone who wasn't sure they were supposed to be here. I have a reservation. My husband is parking the car. I wasn't. I've never stayed somewhere like this before. First time here? First time anywhere like this. She laughed a little. My in-laws gave us the trip as a gift. I keep waiting for someone to tell me I made a wrong turn somewhere. Marisol looked at her. You made the right turn, she said. On her last evening, she sat at the window in the signature suite and wrote the first draft of her assessment. It was honest, and it was specific, and it did not soften what needed to be said. She recommended 3 structural changes to the guest services training program. She flagged the front desk verification protocol for immediate review. She wrote, in the section about property culture, the Belmore Grand has significant goodwill and institutional reputation to build from. What it requires is alignment between what the property says it offers and the actual experience of every guest who walks through the door. The gap between those two things is not large. But it is real, and it is fixable. She sent it at 10:17 p.m. and then ordered room service, the shrimp, finally, and ate it on the small terrace with the harbor sounds below. She thought about Fletcher's glance at her bag, the quick assessment, the conclusion drawn, the certainty that he was right about what he saw. She thought about every room she'd walked into and had to prove herself in, every conversation that started slightly wrong and had to be steered, every version of the look, every manager, every front desk, every table that wasn't quite ready when she arrived. She thought about the woman with the stroller and the popped wheel, looking around like she'd made a wrong turn. She thought about her mother's words, be so undeniably present that they cannot look away. And she thought, not for the first time, but perhaps more clearly than before, that presence wasn't only about being seen. It was about what you did once you were in the room. It was about the report filed, and the protocol changed, and the training redesigned. It was about making sure the woman with the stroller, and every woman after her, walked in and felt what they were supposed to feel in a place that had decided, at last, to mean what it said. The harbor was dark, and the lights of the city were on the water, and the shrimp was good. Marisol Vega Okafor finished her dinner, made a note to herself to follow up with Sandra about the training timeline, and went to bed. She had an early flight,